In today's Farm Report, sign-up is underway for the Margin Protection Program. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more on this new dairy protection program that was created by the 2014 Farm Bill.
Dairy producers nationwide will again have opportunity to enroll in a USDA program that provides assistance when the margin falls below a selected coverage level, the Dairy Margin Protection Program.
This was a new dairy protection program which was authorized by the Farm Bill passed last year. It follows along the lines of other Farm Bill programs in that it's a voluntary risk management tool designed to provide a safety net, when in this case the difference between the national price of milk and the national price of feed triggers a certain margin selected by the producer.
Farm Service Agency Administrator Val Docini says for the 2015 MPP enrollment timeline,
the sign-up begins on the 1st of July and extends until the 30th of September this year.
MPP enrolls farmers in the program through 2018. Producers pay a $100 administrative fee every year. The program allows open enrollment annually, so producers can select their coverage levels.
You can get catastrophic coverage, which offers just the bare bones minimal protection, and that's when margins fall below $4 a hundredweight, and that covers 90% of one's production history. For increased protections, dairy operations can choose between $4.50 and $8 in 50-cent increments, and that just allows for a little bit of coverage depending on how large the dairy operation is and what the volatility of milk prices and feed prices have been.
To aid dairy producers in making a decision about MPP and the type of coverage that best fits their needs,
we've got a good online resource. They can find that at our website, fsa.usda.gov/MPP tool, all one word. And there they can take a look at what the numbers might be for their unique operation and its needs and plug in a number and see if perhaps $8 or somewhere less than that, or maybe just catastrophic coverage.
Administrator Dolcini says if 2014 enrollment is any indication, MPP is a well-received risk management tool among dairy producers.
We saw in the first sign-up lots of participation from dairy operations, large and small, folks from the New England area across to the dairy states in the Midwest and out to California all took a hard look at the margin protection program to determine which level of coverage would be best, and we signed up nearly 25,000 family dairy operations around the country.
More details about the Dairy Margin Protection Program are available through local FSA offices or online at www.fsa.usda.gov. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
About 3 million phone calls with food safety questions, 12 million inquiries through other technologies. That's what the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Meat and Poultry Hotline has handled since it began 30 years ago this month.
I was there July 185, and in fact, I took the very first call.
Susan Conley, now retired, managed the Meat and Poultry Hotline for quite a while. Here's how it got started.
There had been a number of cases of foodborne illness and outbreaks. The consumer groups petitioned the government for safe food labeling on meat and poultry products. And the hotline was established in answer to those concerns, to get the word out to consumers, and they would have an 800 number that they could call and ask any question they have about food safety.
And you still can call 1-888-MP-HOTLINE or ask your web browser to search for Meat and Poultry Hotline, which is available on all sorts of technologies today. And Susan Conley told me,
I feel very honored that I was part of the beginning.
30 years ago, and it's still going strong. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
A recent USDA study looked at the reasons why former residents return to their home rural communities. Rod Bain with the USDA reports.
Why do some former small town and rural residents return to their hometown or a similar area later in life? That question was posed by John Cromartie and a team of USDA economic researchers as part of a study.
Over the years, visiting rural communities, I had just collected an enormous number of anecdotal stories and seen firsthand the role of return migrants in leadership positions in these towns.
Migrants being the ERS study term for those former residents who return to live in rural communities versus non-migrant residents who lived most or all of their lives in the same towns. Now, what Cromartie meant by leadership is the ability of returning residents to reconnect with the community in ways such as in roles as business owners, civic leaders, or community volunteers.
We were talking to people who were returning after going to college, after spending a number of years possibly in an urban job or or possibly in the military, spending time gaining that experience elsewhere. And those skills, that experience, we just saw over and over how it made a positive impact back home. With returnees, they have both the skills and the knowledge of the community and the social ties that allows them to really use those skills in a very unique way to tie back into the community and to really make a positive impact.
This is one of the impacts returning residents have in their rural communities. But as for the reason for the return by former residents back home, well, Cromedy says the primary factor was family.
We spoke with both people who returned and people who did not return, and one of the biggest differences between those two groups were the number of them that had one or both parents still living at home. Almost all return migrants we spoke with had brought a spouse back with them, had either begun to raise a family or started to raise a family as soon as they got back, and almost all of them had one or both parents at home.
Finding a job was also important to returning residents, but in some cases, they used creative and entrepreneurial methods to overcome employment limitations.
Many of them did talk about sacrifices in terms of career and income as a trade-off to the benefits they gained from living at home. And the other interesting part about sort of the job side of the discussions was that returnees often came up with very creative ways to make a living back home, often engaging in activities they hadn't experienced before, such as starting businesses.
And Cromedy says the availability of amenities, whether natural sites like mountains, forest, or bodies of water, or community facilities such as schools, parks, and swimming pools, also played a role in residents returning home to raise a family. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. When it comes to genetically modified food crops, not enough education has occurred to assure consumers of the benefits of such technologies. That's according to Darren Kopic of the Agricultural Retailers Association.
The consumer's not at the place where we need to be able to have them to be comfortable in launching these technologies, especially in Europe. But even so, in the United States, it's less solid than it used to be.
Kopic says this creates frustration among producers who desire to take advantage of the benefits that GMO crops allow, which in turn creates a more sustainable agricultural system.
It's a more precise breeding technology. You don't drag nearly as much baggage along as you do with some of the other older breeding technologies that are used. It allows you to be more precise in the pests that you're controlling, allows you to make more efficient use of inputs. Water's going to be a really important one in that area. So there's so many things that it can bring to the table and make our system more efficient, more accountable, more effective, better at controlling pests, etc.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.